Hello, BookTube. Well, somehow or other, I don't quite know how, this channel reached 18,000 subscribers. And as usual, when we hit a milestone like that, I call for questions, for Q&A. I'm always a little bit skeptical. I talk all the time. I make 5 or 6 videos a day. I do live streams. I'm always skeptical that there are going to be any more questions, that there could be. And I'm always wrong. There always are questions. So I'm going to go about answering them today. I'm going to do the usual caveats that I do for all of these things. There's one caveat that I'm adding on here, but we'll get to it. But the usual caveats are I'm going to break these things into 30-minute installments so that the video just isn't going on forever. And also, I copied and pasted all of these questions over from Google Docs to, or rather from the comment section of my video to a Google document. And I'm pretty good at that. We've done a lot of these, but I might have skipped a question or two. If that's true, it's not censorship or anything like that. It's just a mistake. Feel free to ask in the next Q&A. So we're gonna jump right in here and press on to the 30-minute mark or so. So the first question is from Randy Ray, the literate Texan. Who is your favorite booktuber, and when did you first realize it was me? You're no Jack Edwards, pal. The Spaminator. How did the Metamorphoses not make your 100 greatest books list? It deserves more than an honorable mention. Ovid schmovid. Oliver Bostridge. You don't have to keep in mind here. Sorry for the stumbling, but BookTube is now listing everyone by the @ handle instead of their name. Thoughts on the novels of John Cowper Powys. Currently, I'm getting into him, and I think he's a neglected great. Owen Glendower, for instance, which I'm now on, strikes me as an absolutely masterful historical novel. I'm nonetheless aware he is a Marmite author. Interested in your critical judgment. If you like him, what are your favorites? If you don't, what are his faults? I don't particularly like him because his books are awful stodgy. Owen Glendower would be a perfect example of that. Masterful, I don't know, but interesting? I don't know. I don't know that I would do that. I don't know that I would go that far. I've tried, of course I've read everything, all the books that he's written. A couple of them I have liked better than others. None that I've loved. He strikes me as very stiff in a totally non-engaging way. I'm glad that you're liking him, but I don't think that he's a neglected masterpiece. The Big Shep says, you've talked a bit about redirecting misguided young men who enjoy Cormac McCarthy and Faulkner by appealing to their interests through better authors. Yes, it's almost always possible to find authors who are doing the things they think they're getting from those authors, but who are doing those things better. And also doing those things on the line of enjoying reading. Whereas though the things that most young men are enjoying in Cormac McCarthy, for instance, are things whose natural progression is chopping wood, punching women. It's not books, because it's not literary. The things that those young men are starting to nibble at in Dude Bro authors are not literary. There's no literary path for them to follow. But anyway, who are your go-to authors in these cases, and do you have any confirmed success stories of this working? Oh, I do have success stories. Yes, indeed. I do have success stories. I can wean almost anybody off these authors, unless the person is just not a reader at all. What Cormac McCarthy and his ilk are doing, Chuck Palahniuk and whatnot, it's not books. They're not well and truly books. They're something else. They're exciting a different part of the brain. They're getting different kinds of dopamine responses. And if that's all that the person wants, if that's all they're getting, well, okay, then I can't lead that person to any real books, because they're not looking for books at all. It's not the reading that they're doing. But otherwise, I can. And I have success stories along these lines. And as to who I would recommend, no blanket recommendations. It would depend on, I never make blanket recommendations. It would depend on what kinds of experiences you're getting out of these books. There are all kinds of authors out there that can be used as a methadone treatment to get you off the hard stuff. It's me, by the way. I am the misguided man who likes McCarthy. You can be helped. You can be fixed, even if it's done by baby steps. Cormac McCarthy is the most successful and latest effulgence in the Dude Bro literary subgenre that started with the Dude Bro Bible, with the Dude Bro text. which is The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. So, believe it or not, one possible baby step, I wouldn't recommend it. I'd prefer to talk to you and find out if maybe there's a better way. But one rudimentary baby step away would be to read The Old Man and the Sea. Because at least then you're reading Hemingway, and Hemingway is only one step away on all sorts of different sides from genuine authors. Whereas Cormac McCarthy isn't. He's more than one step away from genuine authors. Cormac McCarthy, on his own, is going to lead you to Stoner. Whereas Hemingway might lead you to Fitzgerald or Martha Gellhorn or a bunch of other people. I can help, but I can't make a blanket recommendation. Jenny Parks, condolences yet again on another milestone. Do you have any advice for becoming more comfortable in front of a camera? As someone who constantly feels like I'm bothering people, do you have any words of wisdom to help with this? Sorry to ask, but you seem to be good at mentoring. Well, I'd say the age-old maxim of public speaking, which is to picture everybody in their underwear. But as well known, I don't wear any underwear. So it wouldn't help you there. The key when it comes to talking on camera in the 21st century is that you're not in front of anybody. It's just a little device in your room. It's true. When I turn on the camera, I completely forget that. I just completely shift away from thinking that I'm talking to a device and think instead that I'm talking to all of you. But that's because all of you feel so real to me. But if the act makes you nervous or uncomfortable or awkward, then just concentrate on the fact that it's an object that you're talking to and not a group of people. Surely that will circumvent fear of public speaking. Also, when you're talking about talking on camera and feeling more comfortable, another thing to remember is that it's not going anywhere. You have to put it somewhere. It's not a live feed, so you can just delete it. Surely that will take a bit of the pressure off, I would think. I don't have any problem talking on camera or in public, as you may have guessed. Dan Minnick, congratulations on a well-deserved milestone. Is it well-deserved? I'm not sure. My question is, do you have any recommendations or a roadmap to learning to read the Latin language? I've never learned another language, but I'd like to change that. Thanks again for all the videos you put up. I truly look forward to seeing what you upload daily. It's mostly going to be these videos today. But when it comes to learning Latin, I would say the same thing that I would say with any other language. Ordinarily, in years past, I would have said find a good manual, something that will lay out the basics. But the key to learning any language is using it. Now, obviously, with Latin, you're not going to speak it unless you are a part of the Dude Bro cult that wants to be the most pretentious gits on YouTube, and you don't want to be part of that cult. But when it comes to Latin, you could write it. And I strongly advise that. The minute you can start to use it, using a language is how you learn it. But the rudimentaries, learning conjugations and declensions and whatnot, once upon a time I would have suggested books, but you don't need them anymore. Now that you have YouTube, I'm sure, I haven't looked, but YouTube, I'm sure, has an enormous wealth of videos that you could watch to help you with the basics. I would say do that route. Jack Riley Gillich says, you deserve every subscriber. I'm delighted for you. Do I deserve them? An old guy who just turns on the camera and yammers all day? My questions. Any thoughts on the Walt Longmire mystery series by Craig Johnson? I love them. Just think they're great. What do you think about Once an Eagle by Anton Myra? Good Lord, that brings back memories. I haven't read it since it was the most popular book in the country. And that was, 50 years ago? So I wouldn't trust myself to have any thoughts on it. I thought it was competently done, way over long, but competently done. But I might think different if I read it today. Maybe if the next time I encounter a copy at the Prattle, I'll grab it. And could you please recommend a book on the Carnation Revolution? I haven't read that many books on the subject. I think Alex Fernandez wrote the standard book. I've read his book. I'm not sure that I've read any other. I certainly haven't read enough of them to recommend one, except that I liked his book, Alex Fernandez's book. But there are people, I'm sure, who have far greater knowledge of what to recommend. Many thanks. Please keep up the wonderful work, and always remember you're an important fixture for so many people. Good Lord. Isn't that nice? Michael Feeney, congrats. I don't think you've ever mentioned this before, but why did you initially leave reviewing to go into book selling? I think you said you were gone from it for 20 or 25 years. Yes. And I have no idea why I didn't do both. I was reviewing books. I was working as an art section editor, book section editor, freelance editor of all kinds. And I was liking it. I was enjoying it in vastly back in the pre-internet days. And then I thought I had some cockamamie idea that, when it comes to books, you really just want to be, instead of critiquing them for a readership you never see, you want to meet the people. You want to work selling these things right at the point of contract, where, as a later generation said, the rubber meets the road. So I decided to become a retail bookseller, without the thought apparently ever crossing my mind that I could do both. I should have done both the whole time. Instead, I left book reviewing behind for a quarter of a century and then came back to it. So that is strange, but that's the reason why. Evil Joshu, congrats on 18K. Here's looking to 18.5. I'm trusting that you've all come to your senses and that this channel will never go that far. How do you go about detecting insincerity in a novel? How can you tell when good trash is being truly sincere? Oh, well, those aren't exactly the same question, but insincerity, I don't know exactly how I go about it, but I can sense it a mile off now. Maybe it's just an instinct you have to hone over decades and decades of reading, but I can sense it a mile off. When an author doesn't mean what they're writing. It's easier to do, I think, with nonfiction, especially memoir, but it's possible to do with fiction as well. When the author is sneering at you as a reader, to me, that's no longer all that hard to see. And it infuriates me. It's one of the only things about reading that actually gets under my skin, that gets past layers and layers of self-control. Whereas good trash is, you can sense it. It's earnest. It's the awkward teenager who's lunging and knocking over furniture. It's earnest in a way that I'm not sure that I can quantify it, but I know right away when something is and when it isn't. Lisa Carity, what do you think of independent authors publishing their own work? Do you think this is sustainable or might even replace traditional publishing in the future? I can't wait for 20K. Should be any day now. This channel will never reach 20K. But when it comes to authors publishing their own work, I'm all for it. I honestly don't know why anybody thinking about that route, wanting to publish a book, would ever consider anything else. Look at the multi-layered fan dance of frustration and humiliation that is the mainstream route to publication, where you have to flog your manuscript around to agents who act like imperial potentates. They act like Chinese civil servants at the highest level of qualification, where, yeah, I saw this. I might consider recommending it. I might consider repping you. If you do this, and this editorial change, this didn't really work for me. Screw you. You're an agent. You don't have any literary qualifications at all. You're an agent, and you're already making editorial demands on a work that took me years to write. No, screw that. And that's just the beginning. Once you find an agent who's willing to represent you, if you rehaul the whole thing, well, then you've got a publishing house that's going to have their own nitpicking demands to make, and probably lots of them. And your agent gets a cut of whatever happens down the line, and so does your publishing house. Your publishing house gets 80%. And what do they offer in return for that? What will they tell you that they offer in return for that? Well, we have a large megaphone. We can get your book in bookstores. We can ship it out in the next Ingram pallet. We maybe can get you at Politics and Prose, or we can get somebody to talk to you on, PBS or whatever. They often don't do that. They most often don't do that. So you're left to promote your book on your own, exactly as if you had published it on your own. True, a self-published book, an indie-published book, you'll never see it just randomly sitting at a bookstore. How often do you do that? Is that alone, that feeling of, oh my God, I can't believe I found my book at a bookstore? Is that moment really worth all the rest of it? When that's literally all that a mainstream publisher does for you? I don't think so at all. Better, by far, to embrace social media, build a following, an audience, and then publish a book. That gives you a core group of people who will be interested in that book, and that gives you the wind beneath your wings to start doing your own PR work and keeping 90% of the profit, where everything is exactly as you want. There's no, oh, this cover is wrong, or oh my God, I can't believe they changed the text at the very end of the book, or what can I do? I signed a contract. No, there's none of that. I hope it becomes I hope it replaces traditional publishing. But that would mean changing the market of bookstores. That would mean that bookstores have to be very different, and so would libraries. And I don't see them going in that direction. So instead, it'll probably be just this this bifurcated thing, this two tracks for publishing. And if you are a hungry, omnivorous reader, you'll just have to make allowances for that. You'll have to be on the lookout for really good indie stuff. Let's see here. The Spaminator. Which book is better, 1984 or Brave New World? 1984. Joel Swagman. I enjoy your best and worst list at the end of every year. Yes, indeed. Best and worst books of the year, every year. I've often thought they would make great videos as well. Have you ever considered doing video versions of your year-end list as an addition to the written version? I've done a hobbled version of that on this channel. I think once I tried it. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the feeling at all. To me, those are siloed off as what they have always been, what they've been forever and ever, for a long 20 years now, which is a written list. So no, I won't make videos, but they will be on the newly revived Steve Reads. For the last few years, those year-end lists have been on Open Letters Review, and I've put a Steve Reads banner over it. But Open Letters Review has many editors. It has many hands in the pot. Steve Reads is just me, and Steve Reads has been relaunched on Substack. So those lists will now be back where they belong. They will be on Steve Reads. Alex Hardy. Hey, Steve, greetings from Boston. You're in Boston, and we've never met? You're in Boston, and you never come over here for wine and calzones and for Frida to scream at you? In your latest Q&A, someone asked if there were any conservative writers you liked, and you mentioned Will and Krauthammer. We certainly are not living in a golden age of such writing, or rather we are just flooded with you-know-what. But what do you think of the punditry of Jonah Goldberg? Okay. Well, I bleeped out the you-know-what, but it's certainly the first word that comes to mind when his punditry comes up. He's a moron. Just curious, which do you like better, Library of Americas with slipcases or with dust jackets? Well, of course I like the compact, really sturdy nature of the slipcases, but I'm not good with slipcases. I tend to wrestle with them and damage the books that are in them. Most of the time, it ends up being a fight. So I for use, and all my books I prefer to use, I prefer the black and white dust jackets. What recommendations might you give to someone who was blown away by The Pillars of the Earth? If it helps to know what I loved about it, the realistic medieval characters, the plots, the arcs, the world building, the emotional impact, a joy from beginning to end. Well, a lot of my recommendations would be fairly normal. What are your qualifications there? H.F.M. Prescott's Man on a Donkey, a great immersive work of Tudor fiction. I certainly recommend that. The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. The Journeyer by Gary Jennings, about Marco Polo. Talk about immersive. Oh my. I don't know. Journeyer is not available anymore, but I'm sure you could find a paperback secondhand online. And also, let's see here. It's always wine, wine, wine with you. No scotch, no spirits. No, scotch and spirits, despite what you might have heard from the Dude Bro cigar crowd, do not help with conversation. Wine does, and has a 7,000-year reputation for helping with conversation. Hard liquor does not. Hard liquor helps in morose silences that lead to violence, physical violence. So no, just wine. Finally, this isn't a question. I just want to embarrass you. Surely you've influenced my reading, but more specifically, your videos have broadened how widely I read more than anything else. I just scored a hardcover of the Ellsworth Three Musketeers at the Brattle sale lot. Thanks. You saw that hardcover and you grabbed it. So we go to the Brattle at the same times. We see the same. It's not like you go once in a while. I saw that hardcover, that Ellsworth hardcover at the sale lot at the Brattle, and I actually, the thought crossed my mind, you should get it and do a giveaway. And then I thought, no, giveaway might not work. It might take a long time. You got an advanced copy of the book. You got a finished copy of the book. You reviewed the book. You're blurbed. Let it go. Leave it for somebody else. And you were somebody else. So you go to the Brattle, but without me. That's got to stop, doesn't it? Bottle Imp Books. Congrats, Steve. You're such a fixture in our home that my 4-year-old son asked me to put on your videos when he sees the thumbnails. Oh, why? Well, I know that this is true because people have been watching my videos for the whole of their growing up time. I know a handful of, actually now it's more than a handful of readers who watched me all through their high school and then applied to college. With their reading heavily influenced by me, without me ever sharing a room with them, ever being in the same room with them. You often say your days of traveling are over, but aren't you tempted to visit Cedarburg? Scenic Cedarburg, Wisconsin is where you want me to go if I resume traveling. Also, my son and I love reading Who Wet My Pants together after you recommended it on the Book of the Day some time ago. Are any other oversized kids' books you could recommend from your collection? Well, Lane Smith wrote a book called It's a Book that's hilarious and that will really help to encourage your little one to become a reader. It's all about a just beleaguered main character who wants to read his book, and the person chirping at him has no idea what you're talking about. Can you pinch the screen? No, it's a book. Do you have to charge it? No, it's a book. He used to say it over and over again. It's a Book is a delight. But there's a big, bright, colorful book called Rodzilla that's also really, really good. I don't remember off the top of my head who did Rodzilla, but it's worth finding. And lots of others. Oh my God, I love kids' picture books. Love them. Mike Coletti, have you written any critical/analytical essays on any works of literature? If so, where can I find those essays? If you mean lit crit, if you mean actually literary criticism, so 30 pages on the semiotics of Foucault or whatnot, no. I thankfully have never written anything like that. Madman Gone Mad, 18K, you've grown so fast. 17 Q&A felt like just 2 weeks ago. It did. Have you ever been blurbed on a book you didn't like? Yes, it happens. Yes, it happens. Where I will write a review, 800 words, 900 words, something like that, and it's pretty obvious to anybody from reading the review that I didn't mostly like the book. And sometimes, as a game, friendly game, or sometimes a little bit out of spite, the book's publicist will see that review and like the game of pulling out a line out of context, a fragment out of context that seems positive, or that is positive. And putting it on the book. In the past, I have had book publicists do that to me. And usually it's done in good fun. So that I go to a bookstore, I see the paperback of a book that I largely didn't like and largely warned readers about, and there's an enthusiastic blurb by me on the cover. Is there a particular book you are most happy to be blurbed on? Yeah, that would be the Bible. The Norton Critical Edition of the New Testament. The King James Bible has my blurb on it. So I'm pretty happy to be blurbed there. My one dream, which so far as I know has never happened, is to be blurbed on a Penguin Classic. I don't think that's ever happened. I don't think that's ever happened. I could be wrong. Jojo Dogface, congrats on 18K. I had a question in mind, but it's in Aramaic and it's very personal and quite lengthy, so I think I'll just email it instead. Yeah, you do that. That's not good for a Q&A. Sarah Nade, question. Other than work-related reading, what records do you keep of books you have read and books you would like to read? To what extent do you plan your personal reading, and what criteria, if any, do you use? Thank you and congratulations. Love the channel. I keep a record of what I have read. I don't keep any record of what I want to read. I don't have any to-do checklist of the things I want to read. But I keep a record of what I have read. Definitely. What was the other? Oh, how do I plan what I'm going to read? Well, it has certain parameters. 80% of it is new releases. And in those new releases, usually I am reading the current month. Or if I'm fairly well caught up, then a bit of the next month. I'm usually not reading 4 or 5 months ahead of time, and I try never to be reading 4 or 5 months after a book's publication. And the 20% that remains is rereading, used book reading, gems that I find at the Brattle Bookshop that I didn't know existed. And that's largely happenstance. So, although even the happenstance can fall into line. Like if let's say I'm reading, let's say one of the new books that I'm reading that night is a World War I history. Well, if one of the books, the older books, the out of print books that I found at the Brattle just happens to be a World War II or a World War I era novel, I might add that onto the pile. But that 20% is a little bit unpredictable. Libraries and Labradors. Steve, I enjoy your channel so much. I know I don't comment too often. My life doesn't afford me the time these days, it feels, but you are an inspiration. Well, isn't that nice? My question is, you heavily focus on World War II nonfiction in your videos / hauls. Do I? I suppose I do. I think it's the greatest subject in the world. So, would you consider a World War II fiction recommendations video? Oh, surely I've done that. Surely I have. Surely I've done a starter kit on World War II fiction. I I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but I have to have done that. Bren Booth Jones, another booktuber. Huge congratulations, Steve. Fully deserved. Is it really, though? Any chance of another glorious bookshelf tour soon? A bookshelf tour. That's an idea. We did the kitchen, didn't we? And then we stopped because I had to figure out the filming angle to do anything else. But, of course, the kitchen has 50% changed in between. I have to do the kitchen all over again if I did that. I don't know. I would like my physical print and paper books to be a little bit more settled before I do a real shelf tour. Maybe to combat against that, I could do the little book room first. I don't know. It's not impossible. Gerald's Bliss. Congrats, Steve. Among all the many things you so selflessly share, I particularly appreciate Open Letters Review. Well, isn't that nice to hear? For those of you who don't know, Open Letters Review is an online literary journal. I am one of the editors. It's free. It's online only. It's devoted to new releases, to reviews of new releases. It's the successor to Open Letters Monthly, which existed for a long time and was a monthly online-only thing. Open Letters Review is not monthly. It's reviews as they come to bear. So you're not waiting for a new issue at the first of the month. Since I can no longer afford to subscribe to the NYRB or the TLS, it has become my go-to resource for reading reviews. Oh my. So thank you. I've been wondering, though, how you managed to make OLR a going concern since there are no advertisements as far as I can see. There are no advertisements on Open Letters Review. May it go from strength to strength in years to come, just like your channel. Well, I keep it going as a going concern by the rich pickings of Cedarburg Public Library, because on Cedarburg Public Library's Books of the Week, I am the glamorous talent, and I charge them accordingly. Nick Piccirilli, do you have a certain strategy for browsing the Brattle sale lot? How do you decide which carts to start with? It depends. Sometimes I'll just start with the very first cart that I encounter and work my way in a U shape. I almost never cross side to side. I almost never do that because I don't want to forget what I've looked at. One key strategy, in case you didn't know, Nick Piccirilli here is referring to the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, which in addition to being a great used bookstore, has a sale lot next door that has thousands more books for $1, $3, and $5. And one logistical thing that I always try to remember to do at the Brattle sale lot is to check the dollar carts before I check anything else, or at least to make sure that I check them thoroughly in addition to everything else. The key that I'm trying to make here is that sometimes a copy of a book will be on the $5 carts, and a copy of that same book will be on the $3 carts or the $1 cart. And you want to look thoroughly to make sure that you're not overpaying, although it's chicken feed anyway, so it doesn't matter. But sometimes I just wander all around. I just love it there. J. Mac Palmer says, I've heard you give your thoughts on Stephen King many times. What do you think of Dean Koontz as a writer? Would you recommend any of his books to your subscribers? Well, I think Koontz is a much better writer. And some of his earlier books, I don't know what to do with the last 20 books that he wrote, but some of his earlier books are pretty substantial. Watchers, for instance, is pretty substantial. Platforms, or no. I even like Lightning, which is not technically horror. It's technically science fiction, but I even like that. Some of those earlier books of his are quite good. Let's see here. Vice English. What are your thoughts on Steve, The Life and Times of Steve Donahue by Michael Seth Smith? I have not read it. This is a biography of my youthful days as a Victorian jockey. And I have not read it, and I've also had to caution people. A couple of people over the years have offered to send it to me at ruinous international cost. And I've had to say, that's a lot. What's way too much money to pay for a little in-joke for a nothing book. So please don't. V. Dale? Congratulations, condolences. Could you share a favorite memory from Norway? I love Norway. Favorite memory. I spent some wonderful time in Hedmark with a wonderful family. The parents, the little ones. I spent a wonderful time with a family in Hedmark. That would certainly count, probably as my fondest memory of Norway. Did you like the Netanyahus? Not particularly. Not Major Award-like. And this may be nosy, but I'll venture, how exactly is it that you talk to dogs? Eye contact, speech, a combination, something else? It's a combination of a lot of things. A lot of things. It's always impossible for me to describe it. It's a combination of everything, just like you talk to a human. It's a combination of a lot of things. Body language, smells, some of which a normal human sense of smell can't detect. Eye direction, sounds, sure, but it's a combination of a lot of things. They all go in together. I just say talk because that's the easiest handle. It's the easiest euphemism. Okay, we're going to stop with this and we'll move on to part number 2.